In 2005, two Wisconsin brothers founded a silencer research and development company called Hearing Protection LLC. After escaping Hillary Clinton's dangerously mismanaged State Department security program, these brothers went full tilt into standing up their own firearms company. Today, still under the watchful eye of government regulatory agencies, they survive as entrepreneurs of fortune. If you have a problem, if you have shitty kit, and you're in desperate need of an upgrade, maybe you can buy Griffin Armament.
Hi, I'm Austin, Director of Product Development at Griffin Armament, and I'm here today with Robert, who is one of the original inventors of the MICROMOA Govnah Gas Block, and Jeff, a production engineer here at Griffin Armament. And this podcast is going to announce a new product. We're able to acquire the patents to the MICROMOA Govnah Gas Block, which we thought was a great idea and really respected. The product line is an adjustable gas block for 5.56 and 300 blackout rifles. And we have interchangeable plates that allow it to be configured for use with conventional and low back pressure suppressors on pistol, mid, carbine, and rifle length gas systems. So there's currently 11 plates, and 2 of those are drill your owns in different configurations. So 2 of them have pass-throughs at 96 thou for your unsuppressed gas, and 2 of them, all 4 holes are 34 thou, ready for you to drill to a larger size with a numbered or whatever drill kit.
We wanted to pre-drill them because ease of use for the consumer. So
yeah, and this is a product that I always thought was a really solid product, because as I looked at the space of gas blocks, and I'm getting way ahead of myself, I always wanted the feature functionality to be 2 positions. Just give me suppressed and unsuppressed. And in this block, we have a recognizable side of the block with these 2 notches on either side of the bullet, adjustable geometry. And forward is suppressed and rear is normal operation, so unsuppressed. And if you flip the block 180, the smooth side has the smaller of the 2 suppressed holes. And those holes are 4 thou apart on the conventional plates and 8 thou apart for the low back pressure, because there's a lot more stratification between the performance of low back pressure cans on the market. And I'll quick demonstrate this thing, and basically this operates fairly similar to the original Govnah Gas Block, where you were able to push the plate with a bullet through the handguard. Here we're able to grab the plate, the notch, and select the plate from suppressed to unsuppressed with a bullet, and it's detented by a inconel spring 718, and the ball is ceramic, and that's to lighten the ball so that we don't have any effect of recoil on the detenting of the system.
also it's extremely stable at high temperature.
Yeah, we tested that by stroking it at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and the springs are good to 1,100. The block's probably likely to operate even under massive abuse below probably 800 degrees Fahrenheit. We wanted to allow Robert to take us through the history of the Govnah Gas Block. So could you walk us through that?
Sure. So this is what I did in about 2003. These never went into production, but this is the era where pretty much you didn't have rail systems back then. Everybody just had A1, A2, and you could get these railed gas blocks like this. So this was using the cartridge, the rear end, and you could just rotate it for suppressed and unsuppressed. And also I had a third position here for off. Around that time is when everybody did start doing rail systems. So it's like, well, forget it. I use this on my own stuff, but later on, then my buddy's like, can you do something that works underneath the rail? So that's when we did this, and this one's actually frozen just from the abuse, but we did a straight gas tube because we needed a clearance and to make the pin big enough. and we just used common off-the-shelf spring-loaded detent to hold it in place. And the problem is with this was, again, it got frozen because the gas blow by. And then I was like, well, let's try doing a square one. This one was originally just with an end mill, and then later on we went to wire EDM. And this was showing off at SHOT Show one year. I just didn't think this spring would hold up very well, which it didn't. And after more testing, we had problems where the gas was so powerful that it would just blow the spring out and blow the pin forward. So you can see what we ended up doing, which is in the patent. We end up doing what I call a speed bump in here. So as the gas goes up, it has to hit that speed bump, and there's just very little gas that would end up getting forward of it. So there's one on the top and one on the bottom, so it would protect any gas to hit the pin. So that just never happened. Now what we did do is a few of them we had milled to trap the gas going sideways, because one of the things about the Govnah is, like, I wanted a little bit gas to come out the sides because I didn't want there to be carbon buildup, and it kind of like self-cleaned it. But again, that gas coming out the sides, some people complain about it would sting their hands or whatever. And like I said, we did do some machining on the sides, but my partner at the time was like, that's just too much work. But as you can see, the way Griffin has done it, they have the slots at the bottom to trap that gas on both sides, and they did a really good job at this. I test fired it myself, and a bare hand hold on the side of the gun is just like it's not like it's uncomfortable. You feel it, but it's not like ouch. It's really, really a good job with the tolerancing they did there. So I'm really impressed with that.
That was one of the things that was really made easy for us, is that we were able to talk to somebody like Robert, who had so much experience with the gas blocks, and he was able to explain the various features and why they existed. And that really helped us to incorporate the, for us, we've got, this slot is milled, and it's milled with kind of specialized. I try to stay away from specialized tools because they get really expensive. But the tool that does this operation is one of those more expensive, crazy solution products. And at either end, you can see we're dog bone in the front, and we have clearance at the back. And so any gas that's allowed to move in either of those directions is more likely to escape the system without interacting with our detent. And we took that speed bump information to put these gas check grooves in the bottom of the plate, and that was it was really helpful to have the information. I have an opinion myself that really excellent things only come from people being involved in a space for around 10 years, and 10 years or greater, and that's that's like when Edison said genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. What he meant was that you're going to have to toil in something, you're going to have to think about something in order to achieve the knowledge and develop the technology to have an optimal solution.
Yeah, Robert and his company did a lot of R&D legwork for us on this one. And we were able
absolutely.
to acquire that, and that's super helpful for the smooth processing on our end.
And I really appreciate that, and they have some customers that are really excited about seeing the return of the ability to buy something similar to the product, and so we're hoping for that to go well. But you can return to your historical conversation. I just wanted to give you credit for helping us out with that stuff.
Sure, thank you. But I think we had some of the same thought processes also, like, when I released the product, it's like, you can't please everybody, right? So, I did this really because this is what I wanted. I wanted a 2-position or a 3-position most, no more than that. I wanted to be able to visually look at the block or feel where it is, rather than having to use a flashlight and look at it in complete darkness. Just like you look at any firearm pretty much, or any AR-15, you just could look at it, if it's unsafe for fire. What the condition of that weapon is. And I wanted the same thing on the gas block. I didn't want to be there any guesswork. And especially if they have carbon buildup, or, you look at any AR-15, there's always gas leakage around the gas tube. So any laser engraving is probably going to get carboned up. You probably can't see it anymore. But if there's, physical indentations or cutouts that you can feel, You don't need to know. When you get the thing brand new, then maybe like, oh, I can't remember. Oh, so that's suppressed mode, that's full, whatever. But after you use it for a while, you just look at it and you can feel it. You don't need to see the markings anymore once you're familiar with the design. So that's what I like about yours. One thing I do like also is that when we came up with this design of the push button plate, I was worried that, what if the gun hits the ground really hard? Is it going to lodge the position? And like you look at the last paragraph of my patent, I referenced the same thing that you guys did, which was this, a rotating disc. But originally, when I was doing we did it in CAD, but we never made them. When we did the rotating disc, we did it thinking that it would just be for like testing of like multiple positions. We weren't thinking like just have 2 or 4 like you guys did here, which is, like I said, you did a great job on that, and also to have like a spare set of ports. And that was a big problem that we had was, back in that time period, in 2012, Downey Defense, they had the Mark 18, and back then, the Mark 18 commercial barrels all came with an 82 thousandths port, and you go look at that, and people are like, that's insane. Well, back in those days, people were getting cheap Russian-made powder, different burn rates that, that meets the peak pressure curve further down, so that means you got to make the gas port bigger, and it's just so many variables that I have to say, well, look, you have to use these are the conditions that work with M855 H2 buffer, standard power spring, and I would have all that called out. If it doesn't work for you for that, then I would have like a M193 or a commercial grade plate, which would be like 4 thousandths bigger. So I would do 73 thousandths and a 52 thousandths instead, larger port size. But that's one of the things I did here was I made this port 82 thousandths to match the port of the barrel of Downey Defense, so that you would have 82 thousandths would be your max gas. So if you had a suppressor, for example, and you had M855, you have 49 thousandths, that would be your optimal setting. The gun gets dirty, you can go to your 70 thousandths port, and it gets even worse, you go to 82 thousandths, so you have low, medium, high. If you don't have the suppressor on there, you still have your 70 thousandths and you get 82 thousandths. So you have even a choice when you're not suppressed. So that was because originally, like I said, I want to just do a 2-position, but then just because Downey Defense made the barrels that way, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just match their port size and do it.
It's kind of funny you took that to be such a flaw that you made it a solution for it. I have one of those uppers, and that upper completely turned me off on 10.3s to the extent that we don't even have a 10.3 or 10.5 barrel at the company. Because in very short order, that thing had jammed an ejector multiple times. I swapped a bolt, and it had moments where it would fire, and somehow the extractor would hop over the case, and so I'd be knocking rounds out with a cleaning rod. And I tried replacing an entire bolt carrier at one point, and cleaning the gun really well, and it was like I revisited it over years, 2 or 3 different times, and I was like, I just can't do anything to get this. This is the miracle gun that won't run, and to me it just was like, fuck 10.5s, fuck 10.3s. These are not reliable enough.
Right, that's the same thing, and you would see back in those days people just complaining about the gun. Especially, most people are like, oh, mine works great. Yeah, then they put a can on it with high back pressure, and they're having the same problems with so much gas. The guns wouldn't run.
Full disclosure, I'd run a couple 4 mag dump, just kind of really brief tests on different suppressors. So I'd probably done that 4 times. So the gun wasn't treated really nice, but within 1,000 rounds, it wasn't running at all.
Right.
And I could never return it to running.
And I think, I could be wrong, I've kind of been out of it, but I think today, Downey Defense doesn't do that anymore. I think the barrels are 73 or 70 now because so many people complain because suppressors became so popular and everybody's running them now, and enough people bitched about it that they stopped doing 82,000 ported guns. And back then, they wouldn't sell it to me. I said, hey, can you sell me a 70,000 port barrel like you sell to Crane and everybody else? Like, no, they wouldn't do it. So I'm like, well, fine, I'll just bring the port size down myself. But I noticed the upper that you shipped me was that a 12.3?
12.5.
12.5?
Mid.
Yeah, and so I don't know if you follow that, but back when I had MICROMOA, I was a big proponent for the 12.5 mid. I pushed that really hard. That was my favorite setup. And I would shoot that so much, and every time I go back to a 10.3, I'm like, man, this kind of sucky. It's not that smooth, you know. And it's like 12.5 to me was always my favorite, especially with a mid
kind
with
of
a
funny.
cam.
I thought that wouldn't run because it has a sort of vaguely related, crown to port dwell
exactly.
time as the 10.3.
Exactly. Yep.
And somebody on airft.com actually said, 12.5 mid, you got to look at that. And I was like, okay, we'll take a look at that. We cut one down and realized it had the same port specs as our 14.8 and 16 barrels in mid. And it was like, wow, I really like the way that thing's gassed. It kicks the cases out just a little bit slower than those two guns, indicating maybe there's like a 2 or 3 thou total relationship that you could close that port on those longer barrels, but it's not much. For something to do with mid, it's almost like it doesn't matter how much barrel's in front of the port.
I always like when you have something that's adjustable gas block that relies on actual port sizes, where you can put a gauge pin in there. You can put, if you want to be cheap, go to Harbor Freight, get yourself a numbered drill bit set and stick it in there. And you know, like, oh, is that thing eroded beyond? Well, you know, it's not going to erode to a perfect circle, but it's going to be enough to know that thing's it's time to go. And on that note, like, my plates were 100 thousandths. I think yours is 135 thousandths. I've never worn one out. I mean, even this that 545 barrel I showed you, where it originally started with like a 55 thousandths port in that upper that we were testing with, it eroded to over 1/8 of an inch, and it just looked jagged, nasty hole. And we used the same plate on that, and yeah, it would, like, I would say like volcano profile that port, but the top of the port was still whatever we drilled it at, 46, 49,000. I can't remember. It's been like over 10 years, but that whole top of the hole would never erode it. So I'm confident if you got 135 and you're probably using better materials than we were, this will probably last a long time.
That's probably where you were having that advantage. Your plate was made of what?
Oh, it was 4140.
Okay, 4140. And was that was nitrided or hardened?
Yeah, we nitrided it.
Was it hardened and nitrided?
I can't remember. I don't think it was hardened. I think it was just
Okay.
nitrided.
All right. Well, I mean, the 4140 is a stronger material, and maybe what you had was in essence a little better than barrel steel, because a lot of barrel steel is kind of soft because they have to pull a button or do some forming to the rifling. This is 17.4 stainless steel H900, so it's a pretty erosion resistant material in its own right. It probably does compare to something like 4150, steel, with a nitride for sure. I mean, the difference is that this is a rust resistant material where the 4150 is not, and so that's while I'm saying they compare pretty similarly, 4150 and 17.4. The 17.4 obviously has an advantage in not being corrodable,
Right.
whereas the nitride gives you some of that too. So. Nitride for the steels is a really wonder coating because it impacts the material to a depth. Your depth, you might get 10, 12 thou of nitride case, in the proximity like 50 to 60 Rockwell C. So you're like turning that part into tool steel. And when I say that 17.4 competes with 4150, I mean nitrided. That was my experience. We once ran a can that had nitrided 4150 baffles, and those two materials, 17.4 and 4150 nitride, did erode similarly. It just is kind of a hit because if you can nuke the thing, you can scale it and make it turn red, and that's not good for the consumer.
You took away your advantage there, yeah.
Well, you have a more affordable material that unfortunately could rapidly scale and rust.
Right. I wanted to point out, you mentioned that the disc is 17.4 H900. The block that we're making is made out of 416R barrel quality steel, so stainless steel.
Yeah, it's pretty heat treated.
Yep.
And the finish on these, we chose black oxide because we didn't want to. Nitride can sometimes do funny things, and these are very tight tolerances for gas tubes and gas blocks. These two bores, nitride in its worst can change the roundness and size of holes.
Right.
Especially as you're getting toward thinner wall. So we decided to avoid the nitride for that purpose in the block.
Yeah, you were smarter than us because our first run was black nitrided, and then we went to black oxide later.
Okay.
So we did the same thing. No, and then our plates.
I wouldn't give us credit for being smarter. I just think we have a lot of parts that we've put through nitride, and we've had some really negative experiences with parts that fall into the kind of demographic of its close tolerance and its kind of thin wall.
Yeah, we have.
So we're doing something else to to get there.
There's 3 features on that are 5/10 thousandths of half a thousandth tolerance on there. So the nitride was likely to blow that tolerance.
Yeah, that's to mil-spec TDP, and a lot of the commercial blocks are not made as tight as the mil-spec TDP. But obviously, if you have the information on what the company, Colt, the military thinks is ideal for something, and it's tighter than the commercial market, then it makes sense to attempt to attain those specifications.
Yep. Yeah, Robert, I guess speaking more to that, like, did you have any challenges with developing the product that you haven't mentioned yet, or manufacturing difficulties, or anything you can enlighten us on?
Yeah. So like when we originally did the plates, we had them all laser cut, and we thought everything was consistent, but there were a lot of plates that weren't to spec, too thin. I mean, it's supposed to be 100,000ths, but we had some that were obviously too fat, and we had to put them on a surface grinder. Back then, we were using surface grinders. Mm-hmm. And of course, if it's too thin, you got to throw them out. So there was a lot that was thrown away. And just getting the tolerances just right with a square hole is harder to do, especially something that thin. And that made me kind of think, well, maybe my partner was right, because he didn't want to maintain backward compatibility, use a standard gas tube. He wanted to do a straight gas tube like you guys are doing.
Oh, okay.
So if we had gone with a straight gas tube like you guys are doing, maybe we could have got away with just doing an end mill,
Sure.
But it was one of those things where I was stubborn. I'm like, I want to minimize everything proprietary.
Sure.
But yeah, in hindsight, I think a straighter gas tube probably would have made our lives easier.
I don't know how it was 10 years ago on the market, but now straight gas tubes are pretty easy to find too.
So. Back then, it was like rare.
Yeah.
When I look at your product, about the only thing I could say about things in that class is that price really has a bearing on what people are willing to incorporate into a build. And so we were really concerned with the square plate. We're like, the square plate we really would see as a lot of challenge. So Robert, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, what did you think, we know that the gas block adjustable market is huge. If you go to Midway, I think there's multiple pages of products. A lot of them are just screws closing holes. But what did you think were the relevant products in the space?
When I was in business, it was pretty much the Noveske switch block was the one. But of course, with the switch block, it required a special rail. You had to have direct access to the gas block. And I've taken one apart before, and I don't know, there's a sample unit of one, but the port sizes were way too generous for, in my mind, to be optimal, right? So and then you couldn't like with your design or my design, you just got a plate and you just change it to whatever port size you want. And the way that the Noveske switch block worked also is the tube actually rotated with the I don't know what you call it, the knob, right? So the tube actually had the holes in it. Whereas with this design, our design, the tube doesn't move. It just sits there just like it should.
Talking about what you were saying before about the erosion on the disc, you can imagine the thin wall of the gas tube eroding really quickly too.
Right.
Did you have any other relevant products that you thought, or you just thought it was a switch block?
At that time period, I think the Paulita machine, you have to look them up, but they just did like some custom units, and I think it used a custom gas tube as well. But it was like not really mainstream. You have to go look pretty hard to find it.
Okay, and what features did that have?
It was like a two position, which is what I wanted.
All right.
But I think I'm trying to remember. I think the way that one worked, I could be wrong. I think that one, you had to get direct access to the gas block as well. Where, for me, it was like trying to find something that will work under 90% of the rail systems out there, which you looks like you obviously achieved, and something I was trying to do this as well.
Yeah, what about you, Austin? Relevant products?
I had, overlap of the switch block. I also thought the switch block being a 2-position was a cool system, but when looking into it, it looked like there was maybe only one product. And so I understood that there's no way that it can be optimized for all the different combinations of gas systems and calibers. So that was a slight negative impact to the Noveske, as well as the need for the proprietary rail. So I definitely gave the edge to. I thought the Govnah was a cool system for being able to be incorporated into builds and different barrel lengths and gas system lengths. I also thought, here's a shameless plug for Rifle Speed, and I got a pair of these in the mail from the owner of that company. He's a nice guy, and it's like all work, no play. I never got a chance to really operate the parts. I sent one to an influencer who did a review on it, because I knew that I should respect the investment he has in the product he gave to me. And I see these things, and this product doesn't appeal to me the same way as 2-positions, because I like the simplicity. I'm a military background person. This pulls like a spring pushes a pin open that covers a hole, and there are numbers. And you'll see this on Silencer Syndicate's a big proponent of this system. And obviously this is a working system with end users that are happy. You have a numbered setting, so you'd have to remember your 2 numbers for your tune, unsuppressed and suppressed. But I give the edge in what I like to the switch block, but with the caveat, I don't like the idea of having a system that isn't optimized for any rifles. So
One size fits all.
In the optimization camp, the Rifle Speed is better than having one size fits all.
Yeah.
And pretending that everybody's, if we have baseball caps with one adjustment, they don't fit everybody's head at all.
Right.
Especially not my fucking huge grape, where I'm on 3 clicks of the trucker hat.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting to see a system with so many solutions, so few of which are optimal. And that's the point I'd really like to make, is that I think this is one of the good systems. I mean, there are a couple other adjustable systems. HK has one for their 416. Of course, it's not DI. And the 416, has a need for, whenever you're pushing a piston, you put a lot of harmonics into a barrel, and to get the gun to shoot well, you need to make that barrel more stiff. That gas piston system adds weight. And no matter how excellent a system the 416 is, that's one of the inextricable penalties is additional weight. So a properly built DI carbine is just a lighter, better solution for practical use, because in the real world, gunfights don't require the gun to be a light infantry automatic rifle. And for whatever reason that appealed to the Marine Corps. But I think it was a combination of barrel quality that they weren't getting from American vendors. I mean, Colt historically had some really poorly shooting issued barrels, like 4.5 MOA M4s, and the 416 looks like a damn sniper rifle compared to that. And so that's probably the reason why the Marine Corps, the guys that shoot longer distances than the Army in their qualifications, there's a natural desire for the gun to shoot better, because that's one of the ways that a person is evaluated in their performance as a Marine or soldier, is their qualification.
Right.
And so the gun that allows you to do better in your qualification is going to have a lot of people that naturally gravitate toward it. So I think that could have very well been maintained as a DI rifle if they just subbed a quality barrel provider into the system. But I'm getting off track, and I guess I
just want to hit on the bullet point. You already kind of mentioned it with the military background that you have. Something has to be user friendly, as in like simple, and also reliable, durable. And this system really lends nicely to that.
Another point to make is that a lot of these companies, for reasons of, it's like if you make a serious gun, like a FN SCAR, for example, there's a emphasis on that gun running under any condition. And I was part of the SCAR T&E in Iraq in 2009. Was helping SOCOM essentially. They saw it as, the team saw it as kind of bitch work to evaluate the platform and said, hey, could you do this for us? Because they knew I was kind of a gun guy and analytical. And so in shooting that rifle, I realized that the gun runs on suppressed or unsuppressed. It's like, that's bullshit, So the system,
what does it actually do?
The system's doing nothing, so it doesn't matter how nice of a switching system you have if your company's decision is let's let it run on both settings without the suppressor.
Right.
I don't have direct experience with the HK system. I'd like to think that the gun doesn't run in suppressed, but maybe it's one of those systems that has two settings because somebody asked for them, but they both operate the gun without the can.
Trying to make the use case too broad, and yeah.
It's important to realize that if you want adjustable gas for the longevity of the system, reliability, and reduction of operator gas, one of the funny things is you can take a conventional can, put adjustable gas on it, and it behaves a lot more like a low back pressure can in that you're not eating the gas in your face and eyeballs and stuff like that. And at that point, it begs the question, why do these low back pressure cans even need to exist?
Right. Just have a properly built rifle for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't. I would rather have a regular high back pressure can with a properly ported, properly balanced. And, it comes back to the dwell time, right? You got more dwell time. You lower your cyclic rate, which is also good to, your gun's not going to get as fast because it's not shooting as fast, right? Mm-hmm. And it's also going to increase reliability. You're giving the magazine more time to feed with a slower cyclic rate, as well as being more controllable. Bringing that rate of fire down, and that's what I did a lot of was I would always post cyclic rate tests of, okay, here's a Mark 18 standard configuration, M855, H2 buffer, spring, and whatever it was, 800 rounds per minute. You don't adjust the gas, put a can on it, it's firing 200 round per RPM faster. You adjust the gas, it goes right back to where it was. Isn't that where you want to be, where the gun was designed to shoot without a suppressor? And you can easily do that if you control the gas. And then if it gets dirty, open up the port up and keep running it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can always switch it back.
Right, always switch it back.
Emergency.
Yeah. So
you actually were able to test rate of fire, and with your block, you don't know which position you were on of the two afforded, but you ran the 12.5 with the conventional plate using a Gemtech.
It was an old Gemtech Halo. So I got, I think I sent you an email, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Which is a lower back pressure can because there's only, I think, three baffles.
There's only three baffles in there. And I don't know if I remember, can't remember if you look at the email what the cycle rate was. It was like 800 and 700, I think. So it was 100 RPM difference.
You said I think 583 and 683 or something like that. Something in the ballpark of 100 rounds. Faster with the can, and we're giving the Gemtech the credit that it's a three baffle can. It doesn't produce back pressure like an M4 2000, where the M4 2000 would have jacked you probably more like 200 into the high 700s. Yeah.
Austin's got that memory for numbers. He's right. It was 683 without the plate switched over, and then 581 with it switched.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All
you're right there.
Sure. That's an example of a really nice shift. 580 rounds a minute is something like the speed of an M250 cal or something like that.
Yeah, like Uzis. The Uzi runs right about 600. I think
this Sten's a little slower. The M1 Thompson a little faster, and that's that's a pretty sweet spot.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to get sidetracked too much, but I'm a class 2, you're a class 2, so obviously we're working with more machine guns, and I like that cyclic rate in the 600s. And now, I'm from Florida FRTs, super safeties are illegal there, but I know people have them. All over the nation, people run it. I'm hoping that as people get those devices, that yeah, it's kind of fun to show off to your buddies, but it gets kind of boring when you're dumping rounds at 1,000 rounds per minute and you can't hit crap with it. But when you're running at 600 and you're able to pull a single, double, triple at will and have that trigger control, like I want more people, I want everybody to have machine guns, but they can't. So if you have it with a super safety or FRT and you're able to get that nice cyclet rate down, I think that's when people are like, well, wow, I can, you can do that faster than humanly possible, pull a double 2-round burst into a target. Just if you have that trigger control and then go right back to semi and keep it in full auto. That's what I like to do. Same rate of fire as like an M60, a M2 Browning, Uzi. I want that same cyclet rate in an M16. And you can do that with a properly tuned setup.
Yeah, it's interesting that when people would say, what's the use case for that? Which is a funny thing to say in America where we're supposed to be free. It's like, what's the use case for free speech? Should we have to defend every freedom that we have? Or should we just be free because we're supposed to be a free country? And it's kind of like if we're the best in the world, then why don't we have the same interest rate as Switzerland, the 0.25%? I'm sure a lot of people would do a lot better in this country if we were able to take advantage of opportunities like that don't exist here but exist other places. Where I'm going with that is there's a defensive use case for full auto, and that is rapid incapacitation of people at close range. You can hear in the stories of the MAC v SOG veterans that they're using strategically placed full auto bursts strategically in opportunities and situations where they're very close to one or more enemy combatants, like dropping out of trees from a McGuire rig, and they or from a rappelling rope, and they find out that they're within 5 yards of 2 NVA, and they're taking them out with full auto bursts. And it's like they're for the very liberal camp of unpatriotic Americans, for which there has to be a use case. That's the use case. If you hit a person with 3 to 6 rounds that's invading your house, you're going to drop them a lot more positively than using 1 or 2 shots with a semi-auto. And a lot of people who don't have extensive training would be likely to be in that camp where they shoot once, expect an effect, and don't understand that terminal ballistics take a few seconds to play out without massive catastrophic damage happening really fast. Mm-hmm. And that's where our law enforcement was able to counter the mobster threat in the 20s and 30s with Thompson machine guns. And why were those so effective? Because that was often fighting inside a building in a city at close range. And the most important thing to happen is if you see that mobster who wants to shoot at you, that you drop him before he's able to engage you. Because a lot of times law enforcement at close range with pistols will be involved in altercations where both people get shot. Mm-hmm. Because it takes, it's like there's life in you after your heart stops beating for a few seconds, and a few seconds is all a criminal needs to get off a couple shots at the defender.
Right.
So I'm not going to say that it's super natural for people to go to the third position on a gun, but I agree with you. We should get back to the time frame where we could buy a Thompson in the mail. This is America. That's one of the things that's distinctly American. You can see how Switzerland has a national defense force, to use them again as an example, and they were able to sit out World War II. Look how amazing that would be. While the other countries of the world invest all this money, go into massive debt, building a bunch of things that don't, they're not building washing machines, they're building B-24 Liberators, bombers that are going to get shot down after maybe three or 10 missions in Europe on average, probably. This kind of stuff is a massive net. It's a net cost in both treasure and human lives, and the guns that we hold in our national populace can be an amazing negative reinforcement for other people to see us as an easy target.
Mm-hmm. I guess to to move on here, Austin, do you want to walk us through the Griffin Armament side of development using the MICROMOA patents and what we changed and developed?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was really Jeff and I cooperatively designed with the help of the knowledge that Robert gave us this system, and we targeted a round plate because we knew we could use something called a torque skip function in a lathe, which is when the subspindle comes across, touches the face of a part, closes the jaws, we can achieve perpendicularity and thickness, size, consistency on the order of something like 4/10,000ths of an inch.
Right.
And that's really helpful compared to a square block where if we don't grind that after machining, the control of 4/10ths would be very suspect with something that a human has to load. You know,
Yeah.
whenever
That
you
becomes
bring it,
grind tolerance.
yeah, whenever you bring it down to a human level and an operator has to do something consistently all day, that's not as good of a process as something automatic like this. And so the rotary plate was a necessity for making the plate affordably with a high degree of quality. And I already mentioned the inconel spring and the ceramic bearing. We have an ability to pin this thing to a barrel, which is nice. You can use an 1/8" spline pin that'll be included in the kit. And this block essentially gives you a locator for your ability to use like a milling machine and a Cobalt 1/8" drill bit to prep your barrel for that. There, of course, are the 460 spaced threaded holes that are, common to people like the Valtor, blocks, which are more of an industry standard. I want to say the 460 hole spacing is industry standard. But Jeff was involved in the manufacturing of the block and the horizontal, and you could walk us through some details that,
Yeah.
be privy to yourself.
Yeah. As Austin said, we developed a design based off of his patents and then our spin on it. And one of the major things that we wanted to target was a cost reduction in the manufacturing of this.
Yeah, we wanted to bring this thing down to 99.95 MSRP as a system, which is really tough actually, because to make a part out of preheat treated 416, the machining time is just what it is, and
Right.
the Mazak horizontal, very expensive machine, a good machine. But when you get those run times together, it's kind of like you're a machine shop making machine shop rate, unfortunately, which is something, a brand would like to do a little better than that because they aren't quite as efficient as a traditional machine shop. But one of the things that a patent should try to do is bring something useful to society, which this definitely does, and then making it accessible to people is that
To the
second
masses.
part. Yeah.
Yep.
And so therein lies that struggle. And I know you had quite a battle with, pulling run times down and keeping quality where it needs to be.
Absolutely. We're using 416R barrel quality steel, and we weren't willing to negotiate on that. Basically, that's what we felt the product needed to be robust and, handle what we needed to handle. So the other way to cut down on cycle time was choice of machine, which we're using that Mazak horizontal, which has been, it's a fast machine. It's a really accurate machine too. So using the B-axis of the table, I can do load reduction, which helps us save some cycle time on the load side.
Yeah, it's a pallet changer. So when one pallet is done manufacturing, it goes to a load area where an operator can load while it's running the other pallet.
Yep.
And then he pushes a ready button, and the machine then knows that pallet's ready to go. And when it finishes this cycle, it switches pallets automatically.
Right.
In
So
like 5 or 8 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, something like 7, I think. But obviously, the machine switching pallets in 7 seconds is way faster than operators can load parts. So that was crucial.
Operator might take anywhere between 1 and 10 minutes to get to the machine upon a need for a load. So what's that, yellow light?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have 4 minutes maybe changing the parts of the
Right.
load, so the labor and all that can be overlapping if the cycle time and the time to get to the machine were adequate.
Once we had the machine and the material, it's just kind of all technique, right? And one of the unique things in this product from any other gas block is the slot for the disc, which actually was more difficult than we would have imagined to make in a time-effective and high-quality, high-tolerance manner. So we implemented a feed mill style end mill to rough it out because everything else that we tried wasn't really working.
Which is a hilarious concept, an 1/8-inch feed mill.
Right. So
we're talking very low feeds.
We're making that machine work for it, but ultimately that and then a semi-finish and a finished regular style end mill let us hold 5/10,000 or half a thousandth of tolerance in that slot. So it worked out really nicely. The other thing, was just more or less tweaking how many tools that I need at a minimum to do the part, and speeds and feeds. And we got the cycle time down over the course of like 2 weeks solid on it because we had a target MSRP that we wanted, and all the other factors at play. It took that much development once the program was in the machine to get us to the point where we could offer the parts for that price.
We wanted to run an in-magazine tool breakage detection system because the setter access on the Mazak machine is quite slow, so you lose a significant, maybe 20 seconds to tool breakage detect a tool. Using the Mazak's tool setter, it has to open a door and do some stuff at whatever speed it's programmed to do that. And Mazak, it was difficult for Mazak to support the engineering request to support the aftermarket in magazine tool breakage system. And when that finally came online, that saved us another 2.5 minutes, right? On a cycle time of what, 2 blocks?
Yeah, it's two blocks.
So it saved us 1 minute, 15 seconds a block, and that's how competitive this stuff really is in the firearms industry, because we're in a weird place where people kind of have an old-fashioned view of what a dollar is worth, and it's difficult to inflate the price of the product with the pace of the currency, which is one of the things we have our leaders to thank for their incredibly poor leadership and their ability to make our dollar just run away and be worthless. And that hurts the American manufacturing industry's ability to do things and maintain profitability to keep these jobs in America, one of the things they're always talking about. So it's like, if they really wanted to help us out, just stabilize the currency, make a dollar cost today what it costs tomorrow, and one of the massive taxes of Americans, of the myriad taxes we experience as Americans, would be gone, which would be a penny saved to be a penny earned, like Ben Franklin originally said. So
Right.
that'd be amazing if you could just stabilize the currency.
All right, so one of the other things that I kind of contribute to the manufacturing on this is the detent system, which you can see the set screw in this assembled block here. Obviously behind that is our inconel spring and then the ceramic detent ball. But little known fact here, our blocks, you don't have to remove this detent because it's captive. And in fact, we stake it in assembly because Loctite doesn't withhold at the temperature that this is going to operate at. So don't remove the set screw when you swap out plates if you have to. All you have to do to swap out plates is pull the gas tube out, which will probably involve punching out the roll pin here. And then if you tipped it upside down, the pin that would normally be in place of this dowel pin will fall out, and then you can just push.
Or you can punch it through to the ID of the block.
Yep, you could do that as well, but you'd have to be off the barrel for that.
That's what I did.
Sure, off.
So then you just push the disc sideways, and our detent is stuck in there captive. We actually made a custom form tool to make that detent geometry so that we could ensure that the ball would be stuck captive. On the disc here, you have 2 bigger cutouts on the OD, and that's meant for toggling the settings with the bullet tip. If you put those detents in line
front and back.
I'm sorry, if you put them front to back on the gun, and
You'll remove the
therefore,
influence of the detent.
right, therefore you're where the detent would be pressing otherwise against the OD of the disc, inserting your pin becomes a lot easier because you're not fighting the detent.
Yeah, and then you can just spin the plate.
Right.
Somebody could put the disc in upside down. Is that possible? Or did you
Oh,
do some-
absolutely.
That
It could
is
be possible.
and
So,
that'll make your suppressed and unsuppressed settings backwards, and also remove the protection of those slots from the gas.
You'd have
right.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Just
So these grooves on the bottom, which Robert was talking
gas
about.
check slots you'll want on the bottom.
Yep. They need to be facing your barrel. Like so. If that makes
So
sense.
we're receiving gas into the tapered counterbores to the holes.
Yep.
And the gas is able to be blocked by those features that are there because Robert designed them to block gas.
It's kind of nice though because the detent geometry there is the same as our QD scope mounts, so we already had it developed. We just ordered special tooling to cut it in stainless instead of the aluminum for the scope mounts. But otherwise, that and the difference, we're using the ceramic detent ball and the inconel spring because this is a high temp application. Those were the only changes needed for a system that we know works really well.
Yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with. I like the spring that in their design as well. It's again the pursuit of the sub $100 price for the product, so that the good idea that they had could achieve more broad acceptance. We'd like it to be I think it's going to be a $45 maybe upsell on a rifle build here. So if people are buying an upper, they can down select option add that part, because obviously the standard block costs us something to make too. So we overlap that cost, and it reduces the entry level barrier for people that are just going to upgrade at the time of purchase of their upper or gun.
Right. So the other thing from the manufacturing side that we did is we wanted to make these fully deburred as they come out of the machine, which was also crucial to the smooth operation of the disc. So there was some special deburring tools purchased in order to keep burrs out of those holes.
Yeah, deburring inside of what is that? That's a Swiss tool, right?
Swiss made. Yeah, I mean, I
So
guess.
there they are again,
Right,
Swiss.
right, yeah, it is.
Maybe they're just kind of competitive.
Yeah. That's funny. I didn't think about that. Robert, you already touched a little bit on some of the things you like and don't like on our version of the block. Is there anything more you want to say on that? I mean, I really appreciated the feedback on the lack of gas that was coming out sideways. Yeah. And we were talking about the user friendliness, where you can just kind of stick a bullet tip in there blindly and know whether you're suppressed or unsuppressed.
I'm really impressed with what you did. I love the form factor. I mean, it looks like it'll pretty much work under freaking every rail in existence, which was, a big problem for me. Like, everybody was like, can you make this thing lighter? Can you make it smaller? I'm like, no. I don't want to do it. And we did make some that were relieved right here just for the Mark 18, because the Mark 18 rail, it's just a beast and how it comes into the front. You won't have that problem. Yeah, you got a winner, and there's really, in my mind, I want to sell them. There's nothing else that I would buy as far as adjustable gas block today. And again, everybody's different. Everybody's use cases are different. Like the rifle speed, I think would be great for somebody that's constantly changing suppressors, constantly changing things. And if you're that type of guy, or like, I love to tinker too. But for me, being a tinkerer, I want to know what my port size is.
Sure.
So, like we were saying off camera a minute ago, like people are always begging me to do like a kit and have every port size, that you could try. And then once you got it figured out, then you drill your own, or you figure out like one that you already have off the shelf that's going to match for whatever caliber anybody wants. I always used to say that the great thing about the AR platform is so much you can do with it. The bad thing is there's so much you can do with it. Because
Yeah,
people can always screw stuff up.
That's one of the
yeah.
definite advantages of your design is that you can change the plate.
Yeah.
You could have the rail off and you could just change plates in 2 seconds.
Yeah, I used to do that all
Which
the
is
time and
pretty
just
cool.
swap it. And I wanted to make it so the spring, you can just swap it in and out,
Yeah, he just removed and replaced the plate.
replace the plates.
That was literally, I don't know, 5 seconds. So there's an advantage we don't have in this design.
And you know, it's like people, well, actually, if you look at one of these plates,
But I mean, you don't need it if you want to take advantage of it. You could buy a barrel and the block, and you'd have a pre-tuned solution.
right.
You know, depending on whether you've got low back pressure or conventional.
Or buy one of our full rifle builds, because we tuned them for our rifles.
Yeah, well, I mean, the barrel is that rifle.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
That was a big problem when I was in business was we were just primarily making barrels and gas blocks was like a side thing. And I'm like, man, this really needs to go to OEM type, manufacturer, somebody that has control over. And with you guys primarily making silencers, that's like the best thing because you know how much back pressure your cans have. You control all the variables. The only thing you don't have control over is the ammo, but you're obviously building complete guns. So you know what's going to work perfectly, especially if it's law enforcement or military and they're issued a certain type of ammo. You can test the ammo in advance. You know what's going to work. I mean, I think that's a huge advantage for you guys to have proven systems, not just a component, but then also being able to offer that component to anybody that wants to do something funky with 458 SOCOM or 300 blackout or whatever. You can, if you got the plate and you got a drill press, you have at it. Figure it out yourself. If it doesn't work, make the hole bigger.
yeah.
It's not that hard.
That's where a natural segue to this might be. It might be cool to demonstrate the thing on the range. And otherwise, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we appreciate you sticking with us through the history of the MICROMOA Govnah Gas Block. One of the great systems that we're in the unique position of having the opportunity to bring back to market, and we're really appreciative of those guys helping us out with selling the patents, because it was one of those two systems, Noveski and itself, that I thought had all the relevance of the entire pile of products, and
Right.
that's a neat opportunity. But thanks again for tuning in. Catch you next time. Dwell time.
Thanks, guys.